Welcome to the first of my recap videos for the week. You are listening to the account with the report for Tuesday, April 11th, or day 412 of the war in Ukraine. As the front lines and general staff reports are outdated, I will be skipping those segments. On this day, we had the anniversary of the liberation of Sumy Oblast, the announcement for the Rammstein 11 meeting, and additional infos on the leaked documents. All other news updates are grouped into situation inside Ukraine, the occupied territories, Russia and Belarus, and international developments. And now for the anniversary. Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Valery Zaluzhny, has thanked everyone who was involved in the liberation of Sumy Oblast last year. The latest on the Rammstein 11 meeting. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin plans to hold the fourth in-person Ukraine Defense Contact Group meeting at Rammstein Air Base, Germany on April 21, 2023. The updates on the leaked documents. John Kirby, Coordinator for Strategic Communications at the National Security Council, said at a briefing in the White House that the U.S. presidential administration does not yet know who is behind the leak of classified military documents. Some documents indicate that Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi planned to produce 40,000 rockets for Russia and instructed officials to keep the production and shipment of rockets secret to avoid problems with the West. American intelligence also believes that Ukraine's problems with the accumulation of troops, ammunition and equipment may lead to the fact that its military will significantly lag behind the original goals of Kyiv regarding the expected counteroffensive. Other leaked documents allege that agents of the Security Service of Ukraine disobeyed orders and are responsible for blowing up an A-50U, a Russian airborne early warning and control system, AWACS, at the Machulishchi Air Base in Belarus. Meanwhile, US officials are trying to reassure disappointed and embarrassed allies in Europe, the Middle East and Kyiv after leaking classified information about the war in Ukraine and other global issues. The Ministry of Defense of the UK reported a serious level of inaccuracy in the alleged secret US documents leaked online. Journalists, meanwhile, spoke with users of the Discord platform who could have witnessed the publication of secret Pentagon documents. Among them are a teenager and a child, and some are threatening to leak copies of hundreds of pages of documents. A look at all the minor updates out of Ukraine. Ukroboronprom has shipped batches of 122mm artillery shells and 125mm tank rounds to the armed forces of Ukraine. The Ukrainian Minister of Defense Oleksiy Reznikov said during a joint press conference with acting Danish Defense Minister Truls Lund Poulsen that HARPOON anti-ship systems received from Denmark play an important role in protecting the city of Odessa and Ukraine's Black Sea coast. He also explained that Russia is unaware of all the circumstances surrounding the sinking of the Moskva missile cruiser, which could lead to a new surprise for Russian ships in the Black Sea. The Cabinet of Ministers approved the appointment of Artem Lisohor as head of the Luhansk Oblast Military Administration and Volodymyr Artyukh as head of Sumy Oblast Military Administration. The commander of the company of the 173rd Reconnaissance Battalion of the 106th Division of the Armed Forces of Russia will be tried for the murder of civilians in Irpin who were trying to evacuate. On March 6, 2022, civilians from the town of Irpin tried to evacuate from the city in their own cars. They put pieces of paper with children and evacuation written on them in order to indicate that these were civilian means of transport. When the vehicles reached the Koshovy residential complex, the Russian troops attacked them with grenade launchers and small arms. The occupiers mistreated the injured and did not give others the opportunity to help them. 5 people were reportedly killed. The Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal is visiting Canada and the US this week. Next up, the latest regarding the situation in the occupied territories. Sergei Aksionov, Russian appointed head of Crimea, has revealed that Russia is preparing the peninsula for a Ukrainian counteroffensive. The Russian authorities are planning to involve prisoners from Belarus convicted of minor crimes in construction work in the temporarily occupied city of Mariupol. Moving on to the news updates from Russia and Belarus. The Russian State Duma supported the implementation of digital summons for military service. The changes provide that summons can be sent to Russians in writing with a receipt, by registered mail with a return receipt, as well as digitally. In the case of a digital summons, it will be considered delivered from the moment it is placed in the personal account. People who received summons in any form, even electronic, will be prohibited from leaving Russia until their visit to a military commissariat. And to wrap up the news segment, the international developments. Caroline Edstadler, the Minister for EU and Constitution in the Austrian government, has confirmed that Russian President Vladimir Putin will be arrested if he visits the country. Canada's Defense Minister Anita Anand announced that her country will be sending 21,000 assault rifles, 38 machine guns, and over 2.4 million rounds of ammunition to Ukraine. During a telephone call, the foreign ministers of Ukraine and Italy, Dmitry Kuleba and Antonio Tajani, discussed possible aid by Italy to Ukraine. And now for the intelligence reports, starting with the UK Ministry of Defence. The transfer of a TOS-1A thermobaric system to the Russian Airborne Forces VDV may indicate a future increase in their role in offensive operations in Ukraine. And look at the assessment by the Institute for the Study of War. Wagner Group financier Yevgeny Prigozhin is reportedly advancing his political aspirations by seeking to gain control of a Russian political party. The Russian Foreign Ministry, MFA, directly responded to Wagner Group financier Yevgeny Prigozhin's criticism of its agenda for Russia's presidency of the United Nations Security Council, UNSC, marking the first time that a Russian government institution has formally responded to Prigozhin's criticism. The Russian MFA's attack on Prigozhin is a continuation of the Kremlin's efforts to discredit and undermine Prigozhin. Russian mill bloggers adamantly decried the charging of Russian military doctor and Union of Donbas Volunteers member Yuri Yevich for discrediting the Russian armed forces, suggesting that the broad applications of this new law will likely be a growing source of discontent in the pro-war information space. The Russian State Duma will consider an amendment to the Russian Criminal Code increasing criminal penalties for high treason and terrorist activities on April 13th. Russian Minister of Defense Sergei Shoigu met with Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko in Minsk, Belarus on April 10th. And that wraps up the first recap. If you're interested in any of the articles, you can find links to them in the description to read up on the details. If you enjoyed the report and found it informative, please consider sharing it with others and giving me a like. Thank you for tuning in and have a great day. You are listening to The Account. Slava Ukraini.